They left me in the rain and drove off like I was a stranger begging for change. My name is Emma. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me because I need to ask you something personal. Have you ever been left behind by someone who claimed they loved you? I don't mean forgotten in a parking lot or missed at school pickup. I mean truly left. Emotionally, spiritually, like your presence was an inconvenience they couldn't wait to escape. If that's ever happened to you, drop your city in the comments. Let me know I'm not alone in this. I was standing outside a gas station just off Route 90. It was pouring. The kind of cold, sharp rain that soaks through your coat and skin and pride. We had stopped for gas on the way home from a family dinner. My mom had asked me to go inside and get her some gum. When I came back, the car was gone. No text. No missed call. Just the dark pavement, an empty curb, and the low hum of fluorescent lights above the pumps. I stood there holding a pack of spearmint gum and a receipt, trying to make sense of it. Then I heard it, the engine of a car slowing down behind me. I turned around and saw a black SUV roll to a stop. The back window was tinted. The driver stepped out wearing a charcoal gray suit and holding a large umbrella. He walked straight to me, opened the umbrella, and said just 2 words. "Ma'am, please." And in that moment I realized something. They didn't know who I really was. The umbrella opened above my head and for a second I couldn't move. I just stood there, soaked to the bone with rain dripping from my eyelashes. My fingers were numb from holding that stupid pack of gum. He repeated gently, "Ma'am, your car is ready." It took me a moment to realize he was talking to me like I was someone important. Like I mattered. And after standing there in the rain, abandoned by the 2 people who were supposed to care for me most, that simple sentence almost broke me. I nodded slowly and walked with him toward the black SUV. He didn't ask questions. He didn't pity me. He just opened the door like it was his job and waited as I climbed in. The moment the door shut behind me, it was like the whole world fell silent. The rain was muffled. The leather seat warmed beneath me. And I finally exhaled. The driver handed me a soft towel and turned on the seat warmer. "Do you need to stop anywhere first, Ms. Emma?" I shook my head. "No. Just home." He nodded and pulled away from the curb. I glanced back through the rear window. No sign of their car. No one coming back. No flashing headlights. Just an empty parking spot and the rain. That's when it really sank in. They'd left me on purpose. My mother, who used to braid my hair before church. My father, who taught me how to ride a bike. They both sat in that car and made a choice, to leave me behind. And not because they forgot me. Not because they got distracted. But because they didn't want me there. They didn't love me anymore. Or maybe they never really did. Maybe I was just the daughter they kept out of guilt. The quiet one who never asked for much. The one who faded into the background so easily, they barely noticed when she disappeared. I looked down at my hands. The towel was wet now, clutched tightly between my fingers. My heart felt heavier than it had in years. But then I remembered something important. Something they didn't know. The house we were headed to wasn't just a house. And the man waiting inside wasn't just anyone. They didn't know that while they were treating me like I didn't matter, I had quietly built a life that made me more powerful than they could imagine. And what they did, this was the moment everything changed. I wish I could say this was the first time they made me feel like an afterthought. But truth is, I spent most of my life learning how to make myself small around them, so they wouldn't feel inconvenienced by my existence. Growing up, I was the daughter who never caused trouble. I got good grades, helped with the dishes, and never asked for expensive things. But none of it ever seemed to matter. My sister, Danielle, was the star, the golden child with the loud laugh and the perfect smile. She could crash a car or fail a class and still end up with a celebration dinner. Meanwhile, I once got a scholarship letter in the mail and my mom just said, "Put it on the counter." No hug. No smile. Just, put it on the counter. They made it clear in 1,000 tiny ways that I wasn't the one they'd have chosen, if choosing had been an option. First I tried harder. I thought maybe if I worked more, achieved more, they'd see me. Notice me. Love me the way they loved her. But nothing ever changed. I stopped bringing things to them. Stopped sharing my wins. Eventually I stopped expecting anything at all. And that's when the real shift happened. I began building something, quietly for myself. I worked through college while Danielle found herself in Italy, fully funded by mom and dad. I started a job at a tiny startup while she got a car for her birthday. I moved into a small apartment, kept my head down, Learned everything I could about business, finance, and tech. No one asked how I was doing. Not once. But I didn't need their applause. I just needed time. And time gave me everything they never did. I started investing, saving, growing. I partnered with someone who saw me, all of me, and not just as someone's quiet daughter. His name was Luke. And unlike anyone before him, he asked me questions and actually listened. He believed in me before I even knew what I was capable of. We started our own venture. Slow at first, under the radar. But soon it grew. Fast. We were smart with how we moved. Discreet. No flashy headlines, no press. Just solid returns and smart acquisitions. We kept everything private. Even our relationship. And somewhere along the line, my parents' struggling company, the one they bragged about but couldn't manage, it ended up in our portfolio. They didn't know, of course. They just thought they had a new silent investor. Someone willing to help them stay afloat while Danielle tried and failed to launch her skincare line for the 4th time. They had no idea it was me. No idea that the daughter they left in the rain had been saving them for years. But now, after what they did, I wasn't going to save them again. Luke used to say, the best kind of power is the kind no one sees coming. I never truly understood what he meant. Not until I became the kind of person who could change someone's future with a single signature. We kept our names off the paperwork on purpose. Everything was handled through holding companies and partners we trusted. My parents were so eager to accept help, they never thought to ask where the help came from. Or why. I watched from a distance as their company, which had been bleeding slowly for years, was stabilized, strengthened, and propped up, all by the girl they used to ignore. I had to laugh sometimes. The same people who used to say I was too soft to make it were unknowingly reporting to my team every quarter. Every decision they made was influenced by capital that flowed through me. But I never told them. Never hinted. Part of me wanted to, I won't lie. I used to imagine the look on my mother's face if she ever found out I was the reason the electricity stayed on in their office. The reason her precious Danielle still had a marketing budget. But I didn't say a word. Because I wasn't doing it for their gratitude. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it for me. For the girl who used to wait for her mom to show up at piano recitals. For the young woman who spent holidays alone because she wasn't fun enough to invite. For the daughter they left standing in the rain like garbage. Luke always said I had the heart of an investor. Patient, sharp, and quiet. But even he didn't know just how personal this investment had become. After the gas station incident, I didn't go back to the family house. I went straight to our brownstone, the one Luke and I restored together in the city. It had wide windows and quiet lighting, and the kind of warmth you don't find in expensive furniture. It felt like peace. Luke didn't ask questions when I walked in that night, soaked and trembling. He just brought me tea, wrapped me in a blanket, and sat with me until the shaking stopped. And when I told him what happened, he just said 3 words. It's time, Emma. At first I wasn't sure what he meant. But then he looked at me, really looked, and added, you've spent years helping people who couldn't even see your worth. Maybe it's time to remind them. It wasn't anger in his voice. It was clarity. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling while the rain kept falling outside, softer now. I thought about every birthday they skipped, every moment they shrugged me off. I thought about the girl they thought would always stay quiet. And in the morning I called my attorney. No drama. No warning. Just a quiet decision to stop holding their weight. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Let them feel what it's like to lose something they thought they controlled. 2 weeks after I made the call, the first cracks began to show. At first it was just a delay in their supply chain. Nothing major. But then their accounts team noticed a missing payment from one of their key vendors. Then another. And then a loan renewal that used to be routine was suddenly declined. Danielle sent out a desperate email blast announcing a new product line and a limited-time sale that frankly made no sense. The numbers didn't add up. The brand didn't match. But they were scrambling. And I was watching quietly. It's funny how fast people turn on each other when the safety net disappears. My dad blamed the head of operations. My mom blamed the millennials in marketing. Danielle blamed everyone except herself, and still somehow found time to plan a weekend spa trip. Meanwhile, the funds they relied on, the quiet injections of capital that came every month without fail, were gone. As I had pulled them. Not out of spite, but out of peace. They left me in the rain and I didn't scream or shout. I just remembered. And when the time came, I acted. My lawyer Jeff kept me updated on the fallout. He'd been handling all the back-end deals for years. The trust. The investments. The silent partnerships. I told him to make it clean. No media. No drama. Just let the rope go and let them feel the fall. By week 3, they were calling unknown numbers trying to trace who the original investor had been. They were offering discounts, selling equipment, downsizing teams. Every move they made was a reaction. No strategy. Just panic. That's the thing about control. It's invisible. Until it's not there anymore. Luke and I kept things quiet at home. He'd leave the news on in the background while I made breakfast. Every now and then I'd hear a name I recognized. Someone resigning from my parents' board. Or a whisper about a pending acquisition from a mystery buyer. They still didn't know it was me. They had no idea the daughter they treated like an afterthought now held every key to their survival. But I wasn't going to use those keys to open the door again. Not this time. I was going to walk through the front. Not as the girl they ignored, but as the woman they never saw coming. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. They thought they were meeting with a new executive from the investment group, the one they believed still wanted to help restructure. The building was quieter than usual. A few employees hovered in the lobby, unsure if they should even be there. Half of the desks upstairs were empty. Most had been laid off or left voluntarily once the salary delays began. I arrived 10 minutes early. Not in designer clothes or flashy heels. Just a tailored black blazer, jeans and low boots. No makeup. No entourage. Just me. The receptionist, a girl barely in her 20s, looked up nervously. She didn't recognize me but she stood up fast. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for the 9 o'clock meeting," I said. She glanced at her list. "Name. Emma Hayes." Her eyes widened. "You're the..." She didn't finish. She just nodded, typed something quickly and said, "They're waiting in the main conference room." Of course they were. I walked past the portraits in the hallway. My father's face still hung in one frame, smiling, proud, completely unaware of the storm that had already torn through the foundation beneath his feet. When I opened the conference room door, they all looked up at once. Danielle was fiddling with her phone. My father sat stiffly in his chair, jaw clenched. My mother's face dropped immediately, as if someone had slapped her with cold water. "You?" she said, eyes narrowing. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. A calm, measured smile. "Nice to see you too, Mom." They all stared at me like I'd wandered into the wrong building. Danielle let out a half laugh, confused. "You're not... Wait, are you part of the investor group?" I walked to the head of the table and placed a folder down in front of them. Inside were the documents that named me as the new majority owner. "The new CEO?" "Yes," I said softly. "I'm the one who's been funding this company for the last 3 years. And as of this morning, I'm also the one taking full control." Silence. My father leaned forward, blinking like he couldn't process the words. "You? That's not possible. This must be a mistake." I looked him straight in the eye. "No. The mistake was thinking I'd always stay silent. The mistake was thinking your support was something I needed in order to win." Danielle's face turned red. "So you've been spying on us? Lurking around like some bitter..." "No," I cut in. "I've been cleaning up the messes you all kept creating. Quietly. While you ignored me. Disrespected me. Left me in a parking lot like trash." I paused, then added, "This isn't about revenge. This is about accountability." I turned to the stack of papers I'd brought. "You'll find exit packages here. One for each of you. You can sign them today. Or not. But either way, your chapter here is over." They didn't move. They just stared. And I realized, for the first time in my life, I had nothing left to prove. They didn't need to understand how I got here. They just needed to accept that I had. The silence in the room stretched so long, I could hear the old wall clock ticking above the conference door. Second by second, like it was counting the end of their reign. My father's hand hovered near the file folder but didn't touch it. His eyes darted back and forth across the table, like he was waiting for someone, anyone, to speak first. My mother sat stiffly, arms crossed, her mouth pressed into a flat, defensive line. Danielle looked like she'd just tasted something bitter. "You're doing this to punish us," she finally snapped. "You think this makes you better than us?" I tilted my head slightly. No. I think the choices we make in silence say more about us than the words we scream in a fight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said it like it had been sitting in my chest for years. Because it had. Do you remember my high school graduation? I asked, looking at my mother. She blinked, startled. What does that have to do with? You said it wasn't important enough to cancel your book club brunch. I walked the stage alone. No pictures. No flowers. I went home that night and cooked dinner for myself. You didn't even ask how it went. Her face twitched. My dad shifted in his chair. I remember, I continued, turning toward him now, when I got my first real job offer. I called you excited. You told me to call back later because you were watching a game. You never did call me back. But I remember everything. I wasn't saying it for pity. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just wanted them to hear it. To finally hear what it felt like to be the daughter who was always forgettable. You raised Danielle like she was royalty, I said, and my sister rolled her eyes. She got cars, tuition, vacations. I got silence. You gave her excuses. I got expectations. Danielle huffed. That's not fair. You were always so distant. Because I had to be, I said calmly. Because I learned early that being close to this family meant getting hurt. My father opened the file folder finally, thumbing through the documents inside. I saw his eyes land on the number at the bottom of the exit package. His face turned gray. You're letting us go, he said quietly. I'm giving you a choice, I corrected. Sign it and walk away. With dignity. Or stay and watch the company collapse. Either way, it's mine now. My mom leaned forward, almost pleading. Emma, be reasonable. This company is your father's life work. No, I said, holding her gaze. It used to be. But it hasn't been his for a long time. You've been surviving off money you didn't even know came from me. And instead of asking who helped you, you kept acting like you were untouchable. I pushed my chair back and stood up slowly. You left me in the rain, I said. That wasn't just one moment. That was a message. A message I finally heard loud and clear. Danielle scoffed, arms folded tight. You think you're better now just because you've got money? I shook my head. No. I think I'm healthier now because I stopped chasing people who never once looked back. That hit her. She flinched but didn't respond. I turned to leave, but something in me hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay, but because I wanted to end this with peace, not bitterness. I turned back around and looked at them all one more time. I don't hate you, I said. That would mean I still needed something from you. I don't. I really don't. There was a pause. The kind of pause that fills a room when truth finally settles and no one knows how to argue with it. And by the way, I added, glancing at my father, the real reason this company survived the last 3 years wasn't just money. It was the people, the staff who stayed when things got hard. The ones you never listened to. I've already spoken with them. They're staying. I turned the handle and opened the door. But before stepping out, I said one last thing, not to wound but to remind. Some lessons don't come from shouting. They come from silence. And the day you left me in the rain was the day I stopped asking for your love and started building my own life. And with that I walked out. Down the hallway I used to run through as a child, clutching my little art projects hoping for praise. Past the break room where I once stood quietly while Danielle got congratulated for things I helped her with. Past the pictures on the wall where my face never appeared. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the button and watched the doors close. No tears. No regret. Just stillness. Just power. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's calm. It's quiet. It's finally realizing you never needed them to rise. The elevator doors opened to the lobby and the air felt lighter. Like I'd just stepped out of a weight I'd been carrying my whole life. I didn't look back. Outside, the morning sun had started to cut through the gray clouds. The streets were quiet. My driver stood by the car, waiting with that same respectful calm he always carried. He didn't ask how the meeting went. He just opened the door and nodded. Sometimes dignity speaks louder than words. On the ride home, I watched the city move past the window. Slow, steady, alive. People going about their lives. No one knowing that a girl who once stood in the rain had just taken back her power. When we pulled into the driveway of our brownstone, Luke was already at the door. He didn't say anything at first. He just wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You did it." And I had. Not just the takeover. Not just the ownership. But something deeper. I had finally stopped letting their silence define my worth. That night we cooked dinner together. Simple food, quiet music, warm lights. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about who I needed to be for someone else. I was just myself. The next morning I sat in my home office with a cup of tea and opened a new document. I wrote a letter. Not to my parents, but to myself. To the girl I used to be. I wrote, "You were never invisible. You were never unworthy. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see your light because it scared them. But now, you're the fire they can't put out." I saved it, printed it, framed it on the shelf. That became my reminder, not of pain but of growth. Of how sometimes the best thing people can give you is the space to prove them wrong. In the months that followed, I restructured the company. I rehired the people they had let go without reason. I listened to the employees, the ones who knew the business better than any board ever could. We built something new, something better. As for my parents, I haven't heard from them since that day. And that's okay. Because peace doesn't always come with apologies. Sometimes it comes when you finally stop waiting for one. Sometimes it comes when you walk away with grace and never look back. And if you're watching this, maybe you've been the quiet one too. The overlooked one. The one who gave and gave only to be left out in the cold. Let me tell you this. You don't have to prove your worth to the people who refuse to see it. You don't need their permission to rise. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to take your power back. And sometimes the greatest revenge is living a life so full, so rich in peace and purpose, that the people who once left you in the rain don't even know where to find you anymore.